it's one of the least likely things that you could think would exonerate someone of murder or bugs. You know what I mean? We'll credit Hans Schur, right, for coming up with that idea. Was he the one that contacted Dr. Gail Anderson?
Yeah. So after Blaze's second conviction, the public defender's office who had been defending her was basically like, we're done here, So Michelle Revelle had, a few days after her conviction, went down and got everything for this case. And you have 1 year to file a writ of habeas corpus petition after your conviction. So they didn't waste any time. Hans and Michelle just lay out they're looking at different things, they're at her table, and Hans starts looking at the crime scene. And so what they had to do for the writ of habeas corpus petition is get new evidence for the Supreme Court to overturn. So they're like looking, and he's looking in the photos of the crime scene. And he said, he's like describing it. He's like, okay, we were away from the dumpster. Okay, we're moving closer. All right, now we're in trash. And he talked about like the trash, like one by one in the pictures getting pulled off Duran Bailey's body. Finally gets to pictures of the body. And he said the body looked pristine. And he's like, there's nothing on it. No bugs, there's no mice. And he was like, it looked so strange. And so that's when he got this idea to contact someone that could talk about what would come to a body after it's died, and so that's when he decided to talk to a forensic entomologist, Dr. Gail Anderson, and she's the one that brought up blowflies.
That's right. So Hans Schur contacts Dr. Gail Anderson. Yeah. At a place as hot as Nevada, blowflies will infest a body if left out in the heat and the elements. And if the prosecution's theory was right, that body would have been there 18 hours or so.
In 115
degrees. In the day is the only time the blowflies are active. So if he was there in the heat all day, there should have been developed, not just eggs, but like developed eggs because they develop very quickly. So since there was no blowfly activity and no eggs on the body, it was impossible that that body had been there all day in the heat. So that put the time of death very close to when it was found in the evening of July 8th. So Blaze was in Panaca during that time.
Undisputed.
Even the prosecution admitted that she was there during that time. So if Dr. Gail Anderson is right, she's absolutely innocent.
But it wasn't just Dr. Gail Anderson, because there was two other entomologists who also testified at her evidentiary hearing who came up with the same thing. It was only after they had all developed their reports did they share them. And Dr. Anderson said it was such a wonderful feeling because it completely validated what, it's not just me saying it, she said it completely validated what she had thought, you know?
And those other expert witnesses said more than just blowflies, that there would have been cockroach bites and things like that. There's all kinds of things that happen to a body when it's out there in the heat, in a dumpster where there's already infestations of all types of bugs and rats and mice. So that would have been like, they wouldn't have had to walk very far to find that.
I remember I asked Dr. Anderson, I'm like, okay, but like how long would it take a blowfly to get there? And she said, didn't hesitate, seconds. She said, how long would it take a fly to land on your steak over summer? That's how long a blowfly will get to a dead body. And I was like, oh, And then she also said something that has really stuck with me. She said that blowflies want to lay their eggs for the babies. Okay, that's why they're looking for dead bodies. The blowfly, I don't know, what is a baby blowfly called?
A larva.
Okay, sure. A blowfly larva, it eats meat. And so that's why a dead body would have been like and I was like, they eat meat? But I thought it was like, so she's like, there isn't, without hesitation, like there would have been blowflies there.
Interesting. And she was hesitant, then he sent her pictures.
Yeah.
And just by the pictures, she was already pretty sure.
Because you have to imagine, he's reaching out to her, after the habeas corpus was 2010. So like almost 10 years after a murder, she's like, I'm sure I can look at them, definitely not. Like, how could you look at photos from 10 years ago? And then he was like, no, you don't get it. Like, I'm not asking you to look at bugs on a dead body. I'm asking you to look at a body that has no bugs. And she was like, no bugs, 115 degree heat. Like, she's like, there's no way. She said, send me the pictures. And she said she never does that. She's like, I would never just look at a cold case from not a cold case, but a case from years ago. She's like, but this was the most, I've never heard of anything like it. She thought it might be groundbreaking or this goes again to the prosecution just making everything work. Sandra DiGiacomo, Bill Kephart at this point is already a judge. Sandra DiGiacomo is one of the also prosecutors this entire time. She's still on this. And she argues maybe there aren't blowflies in Las Vegas. And Dr. Anderson was like, there's blowflies. She not even hesitated. She said there's blowflies all over the world. And she said if there's no blowflies in Las Vegas, every entomologist in the world will be there tomorrow to investigate. And she also talked about, like, I tried to think, is there any reason that a blowfly couldn't have got to this body? She said, was pesticide sprayed? Was he dug underground? And she said there was nothing that would have stopped a blowfly from coming to his body.
She asked, would do maybe blowflies in Las Vegas act differently?
Right, they have an attitude.
They're
They're Sin City blowflies.
Yeah, they're out on the strip partying.
And Dr. Gail Anderson said that she was like, respectfully, no. And then she also said, Hans had sent her however many photos, but there's thousands of photos of the crime scene. So she said actually when she was up there, she got handed a photo that maybe she had seen. She had looked at so many she didn't know, but she's handed this photo and she looks down. It's after the body's removed. So it's morning now. The sun's up. And she's like, look, there's blowflies, which confirms that they are just not active at night when he was likely murdered. Another thing with, for me, with this writ of habeas corpus petition, my favorite part of it, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, favorite, maybe most interesting, is Stephen King's affidavit, who was Diane Parker, we found out through the affidavit, her lifelong partner, who says without hesitation, Diane's friends did this, which is what I've maintained ever since looking at the evidence. And he says friends in the affidavit. He doesn't just say one person, which I also think. I think there was a couple involved. Yeah.
Now, do you know why he waited so long to be so adamant about it?
I have guesses. I think that him and Diane, one of the reasons Diane held off going to police is because she had a warrant for her arrest. I think they just didn't want to get involved again. They're close to the fire, right?
Well, they're almost incriminating themselves. Like I said, Diane's risking being an accessory at least, or conspiring with for murder. So, and they're
close to the fire. They're probably just backing up. They don't want to get burned, But I can tell you, Hans, when he talked to Stephen, explained the situation, and Stephen said, I don't have any money. I'm not working. But if you need me to testify, I'll find a way to get out there. And Hans was like, I'm sure we can get you there, But he was just saying, even the idea that he has no money, but was like, I think he maybe came to a point where he was like, this is probably wrong. What's happened is not great here. So, we talk about Hans Schur a lot. Him and Michelle Revelle really did so much to get Blaze out of prison. He did so much of the legwork for her defense when it came to getting the writ of habeas corpus petition, right? And he was telling, through his research, people they calm down after a certain amount of time. So what he did is he pulled Duran Bailey's arrest records in Las Vegas and he said, wow, this is a lot. There was so much. And so he was like, if he was this criminally active, at this later stage of his life, he's older, I wonder what he was like in St. Louis, where he was from. So Hans files all these Freedom of Information Act requests with the, St. Louis police, Missouri State Police, any FBI, anything he can do. And he's told that there's nothing for this person, which we know isn't true because, Diane Parker testified that Duran Bailey said that he had been in murder for prison. And Hans said there was nothing. And so what Hans believes is that Duran Bailey was an informant who got his record wiped clean and then moved to Vegas. Isn't that crazy? Because when he asked, he got the records back, it was we have nothing for this individual. And he's like, but I know that there is. But yeah, the writ of habeas corpus, 700 pages, 79 new pieces of information. It was a lot.